When Congress assembled, I rose in my place, said John Adams. It was time, Adams told Congress, to create a continental army with soldiers from all 13 colonies, and it was time to elect a leader of the army. Members leaned forward in their seats. Who is Adams about to name? John Hancock listened with a proud grin on his face. He really thought he was about to hear his name. And John Adams enjoyed toying with Hancock a little bit. He made sure to keep an eye on Hancock's face as he named the man he believed should command the Continental Army, George Washington. Hancock's smile collapsed in an instant. I never remarked a more sudden and striking change of countenance, facial expression, Adams said. Then Samuel Adams announced that he too supported Washington, which upset Hancock even more. Mr. Hancock never loved me so well after this event as he had done before, John Adams remembered. Meanwhile, George Washington jumped up and ran out of the room. He wanted to give everyone a chance to talk about him without worrying they might hurt his feelings. So Washington waited outside while the other members of Congress decided whether or not he should lead the American Revolution. George Washington, love poet. Was George Washington, age 43, about to be offered the opportunity of a lifetime? Or was he about to be handed an impossible job? Possibly both. He must have wondered about this as he waited in the library. As a boy in Virginia, George had dreamed of becoming a military hero. He even tried to run away from home and join the British Navy when he was 14. But his mother discovered the plan and refused to let him go. She was a very protective mom, and a bit stingy too. Young George once asked her for money so he could take music lessons. She offered to lend him the cash. So George never learned to play the violin, but he did spend some time working on his love poetry. Here's part of a letter he sent to Frances Alexander, a young woman he admired. Notice that the first letter of each line spell out her name. From your bright sparkling eyes I was undone. Rays you have more transparent than the sun. Amidst its glory in the rising day, none can you equal in your bright array. On June 16, 1775, George Washington sat down to write a very different letter. This time he was writing to his wife Martha, or as he called her in his letters, my dear Patsy. Congress had just made it official. George Washington was the commander of the new Continental Army. I am now set down to write to you on a subject which fills me with inexpressible concern, wrote George to Martha. It has been determined in Congress that the whole army raised for the defense of the American cause shall be put under my care. Why was Washington filled with concern? How would you feel if the future of an entire country was placed in your hands? Washington told Congress, I this day declare, with utmost sincerity, I do not think myself equal to the command. But there was no time for doubts or worries. Washington packed up his things and headed north to join the army, which was camped outside of Boston. While he was on his way, a messenger brought Washington some urgent news. A major battle had just been fought in Boston. When he heard the report, Washington said, wait a second, let's check on the battle first. Then we'll hear what Washington said about it. A little elbow room. The last time we were in Boston was 2 months ago, just after the battles of Lexington and Concord. The British soldiers were trapped in town, surrounded by thousands of American militiamen. That was still the situation in June 1775, when a new team of British generals arrived from London. One of the generals, John Burgoyne, was shocked to see such a bunch of angry farmers holding the mighty British army in a trap. What? 10,000 King's troops shut up? Well, let us in and we'll soon find elbow room. So the British decided to get themselves a little elbow room. The first step was to seize control of Breed's Hill and Bunker Hill, 2 hills above Boston. From this high ground they could start blasting away at the American camp. But remember all those Patriot spies in and around Boston? They learned the British plans and got the news to the American soldiers, and the Americans beat the British to the hill. Get ready for a long day. Peter Brown was one of about 1,200 Americans who spent the night of June 16th on Breed's Hill building a fort of earth and logs. We worked there undiscovered till about 5 in the morning, Brown later told his mother. After a tense and tiring night of work, the men were ready for bed. Fatigued by our labor, he explained, having no sleep the night before, very little to eat, no drink but rum, we grew faint, thirsty, hungry, and weary. But there was no rest in sight. When the sun rose, the British looked up at Breed's Hill. They were used to seeing cows and sheep grazing up there. Now, all of a sudden, there was a fort. They quickly began blasting cannons up at Breed's Hill. The enemy fired very warm from Boston and from on board their ships, Peter Brown reported. Colonel William Prescott, the American commander on the hill, saw the rising fear in his men's eyes. Most of these guys had never been in battle before. Prescott tried to keep them calm by walking up and down on the top of the fort's walls. He wanted to show them it was safe. It wasn't safe. A cannonball came bouncing into the fort and took off a man's head. He was so near me, Prescott remembered, that my clothes were besmeared with his blood and brains, which I wiped off in some degree with a handful of fresh earth. None of the men had ever seen anything this awful before. It was about to get worse. The men looked down and saw more than 2,000 British soldiers gathering below Breed's Hill.